You've been sitting here alone for 40 minutes. Would you like someone to stand with you? Celine Voss looked up from her wheelchair at the man holding a mop and a quiet expression, and something in her chest loosened in a way it hadn't all evening. She was 24 years old and wearing a deep green gown that her mother had helped her choose 3 weeks ago, before her mother left for a work trip, and her date canceled by text message 2 hours before the event. And she had come anyway, because she had decided years ago that she would not let her life be defined by what other people failed to show up for. But 40 minutes alone at the edge of a ballroom while music played and everyone else moved in pairs, that had its own particular weight. The man was 33 years old, with kind eyes and work clothes and a name tag that said Marsh. He was the evening janitor for the Aldenmore Grand Hotel, where Halcyon University was holding its annual alumni formal, and he had been working the perimeter of the ballroom for 20 minutes before he noticed her, and another 20 before he decided what he wanted to do about it. "I'm sorry if that was presumptuous," he said, when she didn't answer immediately. "It wasn't," she said. "It was exactly right." She looked at the ballroom floor, the lights, the movement, the easy belonging of people who had arrived as pairs. "I'm Celine." "Marsh Kellner," he said. He leaned the mop against the wall, the way a man leans something against a wall when he has decided it can wait. "Do you want to go in? I can push if you'd like, or just walk alongside, whichever feels better." She considered him for a moment. "Alongside," she said. "Always alongside." They went in together. He didn't perform it. He didn't make a grand gesture or draw attention to it. He simply walked beside her at the pace she moved, and when she stopped to look at something, he stopped too. And when she spoke, he listened with the full attention of someone who was not thinking about anything else. Celine Voss had been partially paralyzed from the waist down since a car accident at 19. She had been a dancer before that, genuinely talented, the kind of talent that had a direction, and the accident had rerouted her completely. She had spent 2 years in grief and rehabilitation and the slow, honest work of building a new relationship with her own body, and she had come out of it with a stillness and a directness that people either found immediately comfortable or slightly unnerving. She had finished her degree in architectural design, worked from home on accessibility consulting projects, and had decided with the full clarity of a woman who has survived the worst thing she could imagine, that she would not spend the rest of her life being grateful just to be present. She would be fully present, on her own terms. Her father was Aldrich Voss. He was the founder and CEO of Voss Development Group, one of the largest privately held real estate firms in the region, and he loved his daughter with the specific intensity of a man who had sat in a hospital waiting room at 2 a.m. and renegotiated everything he valued. He had also, in ways he recognized and was slowly working to change, let the dimensions of his professional life crowd out the dimensions of his personal one. He had missed things. Celine had never said so directly, but he knew it, the way parents know the things their children have chosen not to say. He had helped arrange tonight, the ticket, the gown, the small hope that she would have a good evening. He did not know her date had canceled. Marsh Kellner had worked at the hotel for 2 years. Before that, he had been a structural engineer at a firm that had downsized cleanly and without ceremony, and he had taken the hotel job because it paid reliably and asked nothing of him beyond his presence and his honesty. He was not unhappy. He was a man in a pause, the kind of pause that comes after loss and before the next thing, when you are learning again what you actually value. He had a daughter of his own, 6 years old, living primarily with her mother 3 towns over, whom he saw every other weekend. He was the kind of father who drove 4 hours round trip without complaint, and sent drawings in the mail, and answered her calls at any hour with the same voice regardless of what he had been doing. He was, underneath the work clothes in the pause, a man of considerable depth who had simply not yet been in the right room for anyone to notice.
Celine noticed. They talked for 2 hours. Genuinely, without the performance of people trying to impress each other, about architecture and accessibility, and the specific ways buildings fail the people they're supposed to serve, about what it meant to love something, lose it, and find a different version of it afterward, about his daughter's insistence that clouds were just sky sheep, a theory he had been unable to refute. She laughed more that evening than she had in months. At the end of the night, when the room was thinning and the lights had softened, he walked her to the hotel entrance where her car was coming. He had retrieved his mop at some point and was carrying it loosely, the way a person carries something they forgot they were holding. "Thank you," she said. And then, because she was Celine and directness had served her well, "You changed this evening entirely. I want you to know that." He was quiet for a moment. "You changed it," he said. "I just showed up." What Celine did not know, what assembled itself over the following 2 weeks, was that Marsh Kellner had submitted an application 18 months ago to Voss Development Group's construction management training program, a program her father had founded specifically to give skilled tradespeople a pathway into project management. The application had been strong. It had been reviewed, set aside during a hiring freeze, and not followed up on. She found this out because she told her father about Marsh, about the evening, about the quality of him, about the structural engineering background he'd mentioned in passing, and Aldrich had gone quiet in a way that meant he was retrieving something. He called HR the following morning. Marsh received a call 3 days later about his application being reconsidered. He took the program. He was, as everyone who worked with him quickly discovered, exactly the kind of person the program had been designed for: meticulous, principled, deeply good at understanding how structures serve the people inside them. On the day he completed the program's first phase, Celine was at the small celebration her father hosted at the Voss offices. She and Marsh had stayed in contact, carefully, honestly, without pressure, and she had brought him a card that said, in her clean architectural handwriting, "For the man who showed up." Everything started there.
He read it and looked at her and said quietly, "I was just doing my job." "No," she said. "You left your job at the wall and walked in alongside someone who needed it. That's different. That's something else entirely." Her father stood across the room, watching his daughter, bright-eyed, fully present, speaking to a man who was looking at her the way people look at things they didn't expect to find valuable and now can't imagine being without, and felt something settle in him, a long-owed debt to the universe, partially paid. Dignity does not require occasion. It requires only a person willing to set something down and say, "You've been alone long enough. Let me stand with you." That is the whole of it. That is everything. Show up for people who are sitting alone. You never know what you're beginning. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.